I'm not necessarily smarter than people, but my obsession is ridiculous.
I'm a firm believer that sales literally, it's a transfer of emotion. What you're consciously aware that you're capable of is literally the tip of the iceberg.
Imagine a system that allows you to interact with the non-physical so we can systematically design what we want.
It's a wild, wild thing because a lot of people they don't see it.
I did get lucky on where to look and knowing where to look.
So that's step one. Once they acknowledge it, what do we do then?
Life is a pitch. It's simply that. It is a pitch, and it is fun. Let's make sure that you're being sold what you want and you're selling what you actually want to sell. I really just love selling. It's the easiest thing on the planet if you believe in yourself. Let's buckle up. By the way, my name's JL. This is Sell Anything.
Mahoney and I on the last episode, we were talking about your innate ability to just sell, but nobody knows you're actually selling, except for you do, because you're very intentional and you know exactly what you're saying. And so I want to start with one. I'll just actually do a brief introduction. So here at the podcast today is William Lam. He's the founder of Upgrade. And I would say for me personally, you have single-handedly had one of the biggest influences on, if not the biggest influence on my mindset and on the way I think and see the world. Everything from the top down, like from the beginning of the timeline to the end of the timeline, like any direction we want to go, you have influenced me greatly with your training. So I also have never been sold so abruptly by anybody else on the planet. I can usually see it coming, but with you, I've never seen it coming. I've just been like, that just happened. And I just said yes. So tell us a little bit about you.
Oh man, I'm just a simple guy.
Sure.
I'm obsessed about some things.
Okay.
And those things has to do with the secret of life.
I love it.
And so to me, it's always been an obsession that drives me to find that secret. Because I don't believe there is no secret. I don't believe that there is no structure to the secret. And I don't believe that there is no content that is so enticing and delicious. When you find it, you'd be like, wow, I will do anything to find this. Or I'm so glad that I did everything I could to find this.
Right.
And I do believe that we have found it.
Awesome. I agree. So in believing that we have found it, I agree with that statement because just in the results alone that I've experienced, and I've had a handful of really good buddies also come through the program, and the results that they've experienced and just the way our conversations have shifted, our realities have literally shifted. Give us just a tiny glimpse of whatever you can it is that you do believe some of that secret is. And I know that that's a massive iceberg. We just need the tip of the iceberg.
Happy to. Most people work in the physical.
Right.
They don't touch the mental, emotional, behavioral piece.
Okay.
And, there's only so much we can do in the physical. Mm-hmm. So most people max out and then they plateau or they feel burned out. And whether that person is in sales or management, leadership, doesn't matter. People burn out at some point, right?
Right.
Unless they step into mental, emotional excellence. Now, that's only 2 of the 3 pieces.
Okay.
You can accelerate what you do in the physical by changing the mental, emotional side of things. But what people don't know is that there's another layer. Historically, people have called this layer magic.
Okay.
But there are other names in the modern time, from the metaphysical to woo-woo to quantum. Now, I'm not interested in woo-woo stuff because coming from an engineering background, woo-woo might be cool and all, but if I can't replicate it, I'm not interested.
Right.
I need it to be repeatable.
Okay.
So my obsession has been, how do I find a way to structuralize the woo-woo in a way like the aristocracies of the old were able to utilize for building their empires, for expansion globally. And to me, if you can do that, then you can basically transcend space and time.
Okay. It's deep, man. We went deep way fast. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, I know, because I've gone through a lot, if not all of your trainings. Like, well, not all of them, because I know there's some that are coming that I'm not aware of, but anything that's available, like I've jumped into. So, you keep going. Keep going just a little bit.
Yeah.
So in transcending space and time,
Yeah.
like I know what you're talking about because I've experienced it, but to be able to articulate it, how would we articulate it to the audience and say, hey, this is going to change the game for you to build your own empire?
Yeah, human beings have access to more than just the physical.
Okay.
And many of us growing up have had that feeling that there is something beyond the physical. But most people have never had the experience of actually interacting with it and getting feedback.
Okay.
Right? Now imagine a system that allows you to interact with the non-physical and then see the results show up in the physical.
Okay.
You would be very interested.
Yeah.
And that's what began my journey. I was like, I stumbled upon something that gave me an insight and a moment that caught my attention.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like, oh, that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, that was mind-blowing. And if I can repeat that, I have found the gold mine.
Right.
So, and if I may, with the quantum,
Mm-hmm.
it's what I would say, it functions with completely different rules.
Okay.
Therefore, people they can't apply the same structure, the same container that they have about working hard in the physical to try and interpret the quantum.
Okay.
They can't even do that with the mental, emotional stuff.
Okay.
So, because a lot of people will say, oh, if I just work harder, my pain, my trauma, my depression will just disappear.
Nope. That doesn't happen like that.
No.
You can't outwork it.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So, in the quantum, it's even more out there.
Okay.
So, to understand the quantum, it requires a completely different mindset.
Correct.
And it requires that we are willing to be so open-minded that we let go of the traditional structure of how we perceive the physical world and how it functions.
Awesome. So here's the most beautiful thing about everything you've said. There's literally almost infinite directions that we could take this, or threads we could pull from that statement. The one that keeps coming to mind is, I've heard you say it in many trainings, but a lot of times the work we have to do in the physical is a result of the lack of work we've done in the mental. Can we expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So there's a certain amount of time, energy, space, effort we have in the physical.
Right.
And some have a little more, some have less.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the breakthroughs that people have when they say they've worked really hard to achieve, it's not actually in the physical.
Okay.
It's when they breach beyond the boundary of the physical into the mental, emotional, or even into the non-physical, the quantum.
Okay.
It's when they do that, then the physical result becomes exponentially more powerful.
Okay.
But oftentimes people don't push enough boundaries in the physical to cause the mind to want to go into those.
Right.
But my approach is, instead, what if we don't start in the physical? What if we start in the mental, emotional, and the quantum, so we can systematically design what we want in the physical?
Okay.
Think of it like this. If you and I were to build a house,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't say, hey, builders, go build a house. In fact, we probably wouldn't go build it ourselves, right? We would design, have a blueprint of what we want.
Absolutely.
Source the material, make sure it's a good deal, did the math before we make the purchase,
Right.
hire the people. Some people in this world, instead of doing that, which sounds like the most logical thing to do, no, they don't do that. They go and just start chopping wood.
Yeah.
They start trying to push other people out of their land so they can get land and chop wood, and then they could build their house. They get splinters in their hands, and they're like, oh, life is so hard.
Right.
And then 30 years go by, they finally got a house,
Mm.
and it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, not that the house sucks, but the journey sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's valid. So taking the time is what I'm hearing. It's taking the time to design in your mind first what exactly it is that you want. And I know that this isn't some of your free content, so I'm going to throw it out there, but one of the most powerful things.
We can talk about anything, man.
Okay.
All good.
One of the most powerful things that I've had come from Upgrade is the list of 100 things, which then gets bigger, exponentially bigger, the deeper you go into the trainings. But because it gives your mind, it just makes your mind start to work. Because all of a sudden, that's not, some of the things as you get even 20 things deep into that list are not realistic at the moment or in this current reality, which then forces your mind to expand into bigger boundaries. Then in order for me to become the person that can go get that, what exactly has to happen between now and there? And some of those things are just not even on the radar of what they are. It's just a matter of letting go, like you said, of previous beliefs or patterns or even actions of things of like that this got me this far, and all I got is a bunch of slivers in a house 30 years later. But if I take this approach and I design it out, contract it out, do whatever I need to do, then I can actually maybe get it in 3 months instead of 30 years. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Of course.
It's a wild thing because a lot of people they don't see it. Like I can't tell you how many people I've shared with, hey, build your list of 100 things so your mind starts to go to work on a new coordinate that you want. They don't get past 10. Like they're just looking, the next most logical thing on their list is I've got to pay the power bill, or I've got to pay the water bill, or I've got to go and Johnny needs braces, whatever it may be. There's nothing massive that they have to reach for to go get. So actually, as I was thinking about what I'd want to talk with you, and one of the things you've helped with the most is help us understand just a little bit more your perception of abundance and what that actually is and how to bring that into the physical faster.
It's the natural state.
Okay.
Abundance, right?
Okay. Yeah.
When we're not feeling abundant, it's because we are putting limits on ourselves.
Okay. Go on.
And we've been too unconscious about it.
Okay.
So we've allowed our own natural behaviors, program behaviors, or behaviors that came from our parents, from ourselves, from society, and we become too bought into them. Mm-hmm. And that becomes a boundary, artificial boundaries that limit us. But the natural state is abundance.
I agree. So I don't remember who said it, but I was listening to a presentation, and he said that the first actual original sin of mankind, if we're going off of biblical knowledge, was focused on the lack of abundance, meaning Adam and Eve are in the garden, right? And there's everything they could ever want to thrive and prosper. And they were told to not do one thing, to go eat of the fruit of good and evil, right? And they did, because that was the one thing they were told not to go do. And so they went from looking at all of the abundance around them to focusing on the lack and what they couldn't have. And then eventually, as we all know, according to the Bible, they ate the fruit, and here we are today.
No, I mean, we wouldn't be here without that. So
Right.
I think that was a special scenario where the intention was to get them out.
Right.
And so my question for a lot of people, especially religious folks, is what's the garden that you're told not to leave, but you must leave?
Oh. Okay.
Right?
Say that one more time.
What's the garden that you're told not to leave, but you must leave?
Okay, so what happens when we do leave the garden? If we must leave, and that answer is probably different for everybody, right?
I think it's abundance.
Ah.
I think that it's people put themselves in a garden that they believe is the safe place,
Right.
what they're familiar with, what they're told that they ought to remain,
Yeah.
and they'll be safe forever.
Yeah.
But that's not, no. The rite of passage requires one to venture out into the unknown.
I love it. I love that. That's powerful, man. That's powerful. So in Upgrade, if we're using this analogy, I'm confident that you have seen many people question their garden, leave the garden, venture out and find that the garden's still there and it's still great and beautiful and wonderful. But the expansion into the unknown has created more abundance, more wealth, more love, more joy, all of the more positive things.
The garden's made up.
Okay?
I'm not saying that anything is not made up.
Right.
right? So if you think for a moment, if we're speaking biblical, right?
Right.
God spoke and there was light,
Right.
He spoke and there was a garden.
Right.
How easy could it be to speak and there's another garden? There's
Right.
another world of abundance. It's easy, right?
Yeah.
But man would never grow to, as the Bible says, to become heirs of the kingdom if they don't learn to descend into matter, to master the physical realm, to have true dominion.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to speak and there would be light. There would be a garden. So I see that as to venture out of the garden is a must step. It was a part of the step that had to be done for them to learn how to master the physical.
Powerful, man. So a thought that comes to mind, and I'd love to get your feedback on it, to speak and then there is the garden, or to speak and this is done, speak and there is light, the congruence or the mastery of language, but then the intention or the congruency behind it, that if the unconscious power behind it maybe, or the super unconscious power behind it, that if you're consciously commanding, this is what's going to happen now, and then it happens. Do you think that's a thing?
I mean,
The Bible says it is.
it's not a thinking per se, right? I think
Yeah.
it's a, if you were to ask me what I think it's a natural law.
I agree. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we're way deeper than on this episode than we've gone on any other episode, which is awesome. And I appreciate it. And tying that into sales, I think that part of sales is having such a level of confidence and such a belief in what you're saying and what you're doing that it's inevitable that the person you're communicating with will feel it. And they also understand it. And then to jump in or make the investment it becomes a no-brainer, because the way that it's being conveyed to them is, this is going to bridge the gap between the problem I have and the solution I'm seeking. One thing, and I would tie this in with Upgrade for sure. Upgrade is a powerful mechanism, or the tools of Upgrade are super powerful in building that congruence, so that you can congruently walk through life knowing who you are, what you're capable of, and that what you're consciously aware that you're capable of is literally the tip of the iceberg. That there is infinite resources available to us the more we are willing to leave that garden per se and learn more about the laws of the universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, are there some examples that you could share? Because I know you've seen them. Because you are surrounded by so many high-producing individuals, and a lot of them come to you already at the top of their game, and then all of a sudden they learn some of the things from Upgrade, and that where they were is no longer where they're at. They just exponentially grow. Give us some fun stories if you could.
Yeah, for sure. To quickly say this, as we share stories, confidence comes from two ways or two sources, in my opinion. One is if someone works hard enough in the physical, they've explored all the ways to go that things could go wrong.
Right.
Now they have confidence in the physical because they've already learned how to fail,
Right.
right? Which is why they say fail fast,
Yeah.
fail often. Problem is not everyone has that kind of grit.
True.
Majority of them won't succeed because
Right.
they'll give up, right?
Right.
That's why you see memes on social media saying don't give up. But that doesn't help. It's more comfortable to watch Netflix and eat takeout,
Yeah.
chill on the couch, do nothing. The other way to get confidence is to tap into the non-physical, the mental. If you
Okay.
increase your skills and you increase your ability to influence the physical world,
Yeah.
when you can transcend space-time, and there are ways to do it very effectively, then of course you would be not affected by the physical as much. You'd be more affected by the mental and even the quantum. So when someone arrives there, and if they start there, perhaps even, they can have tremendously more confidence than those who have figured out all the ways to fail. And at one point, the growth will look like this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
right?
Yeah. So to ask the question how does not make it, there's no justice that can be done in the 40 minutes we have left or however long this podcast goes. But I've seen it. You've seen it. We've seen that confidence manufactured in the non-physical and tapped into mentally. And then all of a sudden it's abundantly clear in the physical that they're there. If you could break that down into just tiny steps of how do we create that confidence in the physical? Because you're right, the memes that are out there, even on the other side of don't give up, it's a lot of the high performing athletes who have left names for themselves like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. All of their emphasis is on that physical. I'm up at 5 a.m. and I've practiced 3 times before you're even out of bed. And then I'm going to go just as hard when you're at practice too. And like all of it is in the physical.
They're just pointing out the physical so that other people are scared to do it.
Okay, I like it.
Right? I mean, like, I work hard, you work hard, a lot of people work hard. I see plenty of people work harder than us that make less money.
Yeah.
It's where you direct your energy.
Awesome. So I guess that's the perfect segue to they're pointing out the physical. What are a few things that we can do in this podcast to point to the non-physical that help create that confidence in the non-physical so people can achieve more easily and effortlessly?
Think of our mind and our body as a manufacturing facility. Your thoughts get manufactured into the physical through our writings, our words, our communication, our behavior, and sometimes even just thoughts. Well, most people manufacture shiz in their head.
Yes, they do.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So they think about all the worst case scenarios, all the things, and I've been guilty of those things too.
Right.
And when people do that, they manufacture physically something they don't want.
Yes.
So one of the biggest game changers is to become aware first of how much shiz we think about.
Okay.
Our problems. We need to become aware of our blind spots. The things we don't know, the problems. Because people don't really change or become motivated to change unless they know, for lack of better terms, what's wrong with them.
Right.
So I would say the mental work and the non-physical work is about understanding and uncovering all the things that's wrong with someone. The someone doesn't have anything wrong with them.
Right.
I'm saying it's their program, their mind, there's something wrong.
Right.
And it's inevitable because, look, there are things that worked just fine 50 years ago that don't work and won't work.
Right.
As a behavior, as a thought, as a belief system. So imagine how many generations of data do we carry with us, right?
Right.
So it's important for someone to be able to go and uncover them.
Right.
And under expert guidance, remove them.
Right. So step one is becoming aware of what mentally or what unconscious or sometimes even conscious programs are running that are hindering us from achieving more abundance easily, effortlessly. So that's step one. Then once they find it, once they acknowledge it, what do we do then? Well, we're going to get him an upgrade for sure. I got you. You know that. So,
well, I mean, there is definitely an easy way to do it. But regardless if they train with upgrade or whatever they choose to do,
right.
Once they become aware, they need to make a full decision.
Yeah. So aware, commit. Okay.
Yeah, and commitment is part of the full decision.
Okay.
Full decision requires them not only to commit, but to also let go. They need to let go of the old and focus on the new.
Okay.
And they need to acquire skills and behaviors to sustain that new vision.
Okay.
And then oftentimes if they want to speed it up farther and make it faster, to acquire skills in the mental, emotional side of things would be really crucial.
Okay.
And then also understanding the laws that operate, which are very different than the physical laws in the non-physical.
Perfect. Okay, so becoming aware of them, make a full decision to let go of the old, and skills to support and build the new.
Yep.
I love it. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, simple.
It's easy, really.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But dude, that's powerful, man. So it really is. It's really that easy. I don't even have anything else to say because I've seen it. That is what it is let go of the old that is not serving you, and then hold so strong and so committed to the new, and build an entire life around everything that supports that it's the only way forward is forward.
There's one more thing.
Okay.
The environment.
Okay.
If someone changes everything in their mind, their skills, they improve, they become so magnificent, they can achieve anything. If their environment completely sucks, they
Okay.
go home, the only thing they get is fights about why they needed to achieve more. They're like, you don't need to do more, right? Parents, friends, lovers, colleagues, employees, employers saying, you don't need that. Investors, customers saying, no. If they experience that in their environment, there needs to be an upgrade in the environment. And almost everybody does.
Okay. So in one of the trainings I went to, we talked about the two types of environment. So the internal and the external. And that change can happen by upgrading either one. Meaning there's been some really luxurious places that I have walked into that at the time my neurology did not support. Like I would go in and be like, this is incredible. And I was almost a little bit uncomfortable.
That's good.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It was awesome. And that was merely by upgrading my external environment. And then there are times as I've upgraded my internal environment that I go into places where I used to be very comfortable that no longer makes sense to me. Some of that is even in your level of income or in what you're willing to do. Like, that doesn't make sense anymore because it's no longer aligned with my internal environment. Mm-hmm. Expound on that just a little bit, please.
Yeah, happy to. Environment is the best predictor of our future.
Okay.
So if we have an environment that supports your growth will be pulling you.
Okay.
Success will be pulling you. So it's easy. Have you ever gone rock climbing when you get pulled? Oh, so nice.
Yeah.
It's like you're like floating upward, right?
Right.
But imagine if someone hangs weight on you.
Right.
Let's say someone, like one time I remember working at a camp. This is when I was like 18. And they have these teenagers that will come and do rope courses. Mm-hmm. And I remember one year, this kid, actually I just only worked 1 year, but one of the weeks, this one kid slipped. Mm-hmm. And of course, thank goodness, there's harness and everything is protected. And I was like 130 pounds back then. Mm-hmm. I was teeny.
Okay.
And this kid was like 220 pounds. And I was like, how am I going to go save him?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really didn't matter how much I weighed, but I didn't have that much strength to make sure I can get him. So imagine having 222 pounds when you're rock climbing.
Right.
That's on your back.
Right.
That's
a lot harder than it needs to be.
Harder, right?
Right.
Well, that's what most people experience in life. And they don't understand that it's so hard. Right. They have no idea. And of course it's hard because it's not going the direction that the energy is flowing.
That makes sense. So that makes me think of another thing that in one of the trainings, one of the phrases that we ended up saying throughout it was, it's hard not to be easy. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly, especially as you let go of all of the negative emotions, all of the negative programming, you upgrade the environment internally and externally, it really becomes inevitable that success is just the next step, or success is already happening. We're just waiting for it to be physically manifested. It's literally here. We're just doing it. We're doing the work. And the work is easy because the vision is so clear that this is what we're doing, that anything that was hard, go ahead.
Notice what you just said. The vision is so clear, so it's easy.
Yeah.
It's the mental that you got clear, then the physical becomes easy. Most people that have a hard life, they're unclear about what they want.
Yes, that's true. So true. And so with this, just in regards to selling, if individual, if a salesperson can create the vision that their solution or their product provides for the customer, selling becomes easy. It's so easy to communicate a vision that benefits people if that salesperson truly believes in it. And if he or she can clearly have that other person imagine what it would be like, sound like, feel like, taste like if they were to jump into the solution as well. Does that make sense?
Of course.
And that's one of the things Mahoney and I were talking in a previous episode about NLP, and then just the 5 senses and submodalities and all that stuff. We didn't dive into those specific things, but all of these things have been made clear by going through Upgrade for both Mahoney and myself. That said, we started this episode and we dove super deep, super fast. And for most, they might be like, what on earth are they talking? Quantum? What are they talking? What is this stuff? But truly, as they jump into Upgrade or they jump into any of the trainings that are offered there, we don't jump that deep, that fast, but it really is not that deep. And so I want to lean on your expertise of take us out of the deep a little bit, back into the shallow, and
Happy to.
And explain, okay, this is what's in it for you, viewer, to jump into Upgrade or any training really that, not any training, because there's a lot out there that are not great, but.
Yeah, a lot of people, and the reason we jump deep, right, is that when people begin to understand what that can do for them at the highest level in the quantum, people will become obsessed like I did.
100%.
And it's just that it's not available to most people. So we wanted to make it, known to people, right? Typically what people do with Upgrade when they first jump in, there's Upgrade self, and then there's Upgrade others, and then there's Upgrade world. Yeah. And it's parallel to if they want to upgrade their physical world, they do Upgrade self, start with themselves. Removal of negative emotions and limiting programs. Also install a brand new belief system that the world actually is for them and it's abundant, right?
Absolutely.
And it's very tangible. So Upgrade self. Upgrade others is even more tangible because we teach public speaking skills, negotiation, influence, leadership.
Yeah.
So Upgrade others is about how to upgrade other people in your environment. So you don't have to have the problem of just upgrading yourself and then the world around you pull you down, right? Then Upgrade world is where people who are, they've already done well in the physical. They either are approaching or have exceeded $100 million in their business. Maybe they sold it for $100 million or more, or they're approaching, right? Or they're doing multi-$100 million deals. Well, that's a cool crowd to be around, and there's a whole series of networking events for people to meet others that are like-minded. Now, here's the key.
Okay.
To understand why that's even important, it requires people to understand that not all successful people gives good advice.
True.
There are people that are really excellent at what they do, made millions, if not billions, but their personal life is a mess.
True.
And if you really knew how their life is, you wouldn't want to take advice from them either. Well, then who do you go to for advice? You don't want to go to someone who's not had success, who's just winging it, saying advice to you. Nor do you want someone successful, but their personal life is a mess.
Right.
Well, we found a way to train these highly successful people skills that allow them to really optimize not just business, but personal life, right?
Yeah.
So now we put that group of people in a room to do problem solvings for you.
Okay.
You got to come to the next event. It's part of your, I know you couldn't make it last time, but.
We did win that football game though.
Yes.
So it was huge.
That is
we
right.
lost the next week though, so we're out, but it's cool.
Next time,
Yeah.
March, it's coming up in Miami, right?
Okay.
We're all getting together, yacht again, and then problem solving session.
Sweet.
So it's the same, if people were to want to understand, well, what's with the non-physical? When you have worked and maxed out your physical and your mental skills, that's when you go quantum. So to bring us back down to earth, I think most people, and I'm not going to say most of our listeners, because who knows, they might be top executives doing really well already. But if they're brand new, I strongly encourage them to start with actually not even our training yet. I encourage them to start with a success mindset audit.
Okay.
So we don't do sales calls in our companies anymore.
Okay.
What I've noticed, and it's very real, I don't want to get on a sales call and know that someone's going to pitch me something that they're supposed to pitch me.
Yeah.
I may not even want, right?
Okay.
So I decided, you know what, screw sales calls, no more sales calls.
Cool.
Our company, we're going to do something radical.
Yeah.
No sales calls, just audit calls. And it's a true value thing. And I told the sales team, don't sell them.
Yeah.
This is a call where we find out what people want and need and what their problems are.
Yeah.
Because if you know their problem and we happen to have a solution, they'll want to jump in. But we don't want to sell them stuff unless they actually have a real problem.
Yeah.
So the audit call shows people their blind spots,
Right.
their unknown issues, so that before it blows up in their face somewhere in the future unexpectedly, we can catch it ahead of time
Right.
and resolve it.
Makes so much sense to me, man. On that sales call, so the first time I ever met you, I don't know if you remember, you were still in your house in Lehigh.
I remember.
And we were sitting out on your porch.
I remember.
And I remember just thinking, who is this guy? Because I did not feel like I was being sold at all. Like, I just genuinely felt like you were auditing what was going on in my life. And I thought, this is nuts. And then, like I alluded to earlier in the conversation, next thing I knew, I'm doing practitioner. Then I was doing master practitioner. I'm like, I don't even know how this is happening. But it's happening, and I'm doing it. And at the time, that investment was like, it was an investment. Like, which also helped me find that I truly believe the result is in the investment. Like, people really don't get the value if they don't have to put in some kind of energy exchange, whether it be money or the hard work or the mental work. But work is inevitable. There's no free lunch. Like, you got to make the investment.
The investment is potential energy turned into kinetic energy.
Okay.
Right? Because when you buy something, you could either trade it with physical effort or you could pay for the builder to build it for you.
Right.
And that potential energy converts your idea into true physical outcome. Right?
Absolutely.
So I leverage the same thing, money to
Yeah.
buy time.
Yeah.
You did the same. Our students do the same. And people could learn things on their own. But I am going to say this. I'm not necessarily smarter than people, but my obsession is ridiculous. And also, most people don't really know where to look.
Yeah.
I did get lucky on where to look and knowing where to look. And knowing exactly where to look and how to decipher were some of the first trainings I took. And those individuals are no longer alive. So I hold within me some of the secrets that only our organization has.
Yeah.
And so it allows me to have a complete edge that's completely unfair. And so for me, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, then I can charge for it because I'm going to give people a complete unfair advantage that they don't have to spend that time. Not to mention I spent like $6 million. If someone has $6 million to spend on trainings, travel around the world, why not just give us $100,000?
Wild, man. Yeah.
Why not just give us $100,000 and we'll train them?
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me. So I actually, on my flight down here yesterday, I was sitting next to this gentleman who we talked the entire time. And he's got 2 kids that are pretty successful now. And he said, I always tell my kids to find what they're super interested in and very good at, or in other words, obsessed with, and then turn that into money. And it sounds exactly like what you've done with Upgrade. And it's a great obsession, man. It's actually fascinating. Every time there's a training, every single time, regardless of when it is, it's like, how on earth did he do it? He did it again, man. Blows my mind every time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So it is really, really fascinating how powerful Upgrade is. And yeah, I sound like a fanboy because I kind of am, Will. Let's be honest. I kind of am.
Well, I'm a fan of yours. So.
Well, thank you. But with going back to that sales audit, I think that is such a really cool concept to put out towards salespeople. That just why on earth are we going to try to offer them a solution if they don't actually have a problem?
Exactly.
And that takes away the whole sleazy idea, because that's a very, when I first started knocking doors, that was the biggest paradigm I had to shift from, is I'm a door-to-door sales guy. I felt like such a sleazy individual, and I didn't know why. And I think because there's a lot of preconceived ideas around selling that it's just a dirty profession. But I personally believe that it is the most powerful profession in the world.
I love salespeople.
I love it because it invokes change. You're able to discover a problem that somebody has, whether they openly give it to you or you solicit it from them, and then you can offer them a solution where they just get better. And really, that's the essence of life, is just to get better and continue to grow, because abundance is the natural state.
Mm-hmm.
So the more abundant we can become by fixing the problems, the better off we are. It's a cool thing. So I know that you've got, I think you have a 21-day challenge, right?
No longer does it exist.
No longer exists. Okay.
Yeah, there will be a new thing coming out.
Okay.
So what we're doing is, in our trainings now, there'll be the standard core trainings, right? Upgrade self, upgrade others, upgrade world.
Right.
But before that, people can actually jump into a free diagnostic call, the audit call.
Awesome.
And then in the future, we'll have something called source code.
Okay.
Which what that means is we're going to help people find the root cause, the source code of their issues, the blind spots.
Yeah.
And that'll be like an incredibly cheap training just to get a commitment, right?
Right.
And it's also very not time consuming. It takes like 2 to 3 hours at most.
Okay.
So people can self-diagnose the problems, not medical, not psychological, not financial, right? Just
programming, mental programming.
Just thinking about what's going on in the programs of their mind, right?
Yeah.
Then, or they can just jump on a call and we can do it for them. That's free. So,
powerful.
And I've instructed my salespeople, don't sell them.
Yeah.
Right? It's about uncovering the problem. And when people get value and they're like, hey, I want to know more, then I'm like, then you can share. Right?
Yeah.
So it's truly a no pressure situation where people can jump on and just find out about themselves.
I'm curious. So how long have you guys been doing that?
Just recently started.
And results so far?
Ridiculous.
I figured.
Ridiculous.
So give me a little bit of insight. When you say ridiculous, it's just the sales are coming easily, I would assume.
Yes, and also when I show up to an event. So previously I would go and share our trainings and all that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's fun. Like when you speak to people for an hour, and that's great. And especially when people really endorse you and because maybe the organizer of the event, their life has been changed because of us.
Right.
That being said, people oftentimes aren't motivated, even though your pitch, your speech could be the most flawless.
Yeah.
Unless people know there's a problem they need to solve.
Ah.
And so I think I was too prideful to not do that first. And so it got to a point where I realized, you know what? I need to help more people instead of just the people who get it right away.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know what, we're going to make an audit call. So we even created the domain audit.upgrade.com, right? Audit.upgrd.com. That now domain, people can jump on and schedule a free audit call for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I even offer it to our existing clients to jump on.
Yeah.
So literally, like if they already bought, they still can jump on.
Right.
It's because these people, humans don't try to solve a problem unless they know what's wrong with them.
Mm. Tell me more about that. Expand on that just a little bit.
Well, for example, right?
Yeah.
I go to Costco. It's like adult Disneyland, you know?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I go to Costco and I see that they are selling generators.
Okay.
And this is...
Do you need a generator?
Of course I do, right? Okay. So, and I didn't think I did, right?
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm like, okay, international relations were a little bit unpredictable at the time, pre-election.
Yeah.
And whichever camp someone's in, they can agree international relations was kind of rocky. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? Not just about that, but like if there was a new chip manufacturer coming in, which there are, they might use a lot of power. And if the electricity goes out in the summer, that wouldn't be fun here.
Right.
So combining the two factors, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a generator,
Okay.
right? And
I'm excited where this is going. Keep going.
yeah, I just had the guy come out,
Yeah.
and all he did was diagnostics.
Right.
He looked at my house. He's like, you know, why do you want this?
Did he try to talk you out of it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And I could tell it was genuine.
Yeah.
It wasn't like just using a tactic,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, why do you want it? Like, are you trying to be like doomsday prepper?
Yeah.
Are you just concerned about like the energy consumption, or like, what is it?
Yeah.
I was like, what I just told you, right? I shared with
Right.
him. He's like, okay, that makes sense. And he's just like, okay, well, are you planning on doing solar? Are you doing this? Or like, what? He asked me so many right questions
Right.
that by the end of a 20-minute call or in-person visit,
Yeah.
I was like, you know, you're right. I don't need solar. I'm just going to do a generator.
I love it.
And then
That makes me happy. Okay.
it was just so easy for him, right?
Right.
And I was open-minded
Okay.
because I wasn't bringing the guy on just to be like, you know, a jackass and be like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I know what you're doing.
Right.
And I was open-minded. I wanted to pay attention to what he had to say and what he had to sell me, right?
Right.
But it was just diagnostic, 99% of it.
Yeah.
And so to me, I was like, you know what? He really cares.
Yeah.
And he did. It felt
Yeah.
genuine.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, what do you have?
Hmm.
I couldn't help but want to know what he has.
Right. Right.
It's like, there's this 32 kilowatt or 26 or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, what do you have in stock? I want it like next week.
Yeah.
So
What did he have? What do you have?
yeah, he had what I needed. So it's perfect.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Okay. There's so many directions I want to take that, but it sounds like a massive part of it is 100% first and foremost diagnosing the problem, right? We have no desire to make any changes, which is what a cell creates. Cells are, you have to now do something different or add to whatever you were just doing. There's no desire for change unless it's very clear that there's a problem. Once the problem is there or been acknowledged and a solution that can be offered can fix that problem, sales just becomes easy, effortless.
Easy.
I agree 100%.
Especially when we wouldn't know if we should place them in upgrade self, others, or world.
Yeah.
If someone comes to us and we're just like, hey, let me pitch you, they would have to self-select. They wouldn't know. There'd be no guidance. Salesperson's job is to guide them into the right program that's actually going to give them the best results.
Yes.
But without knowing the problem, salespeople can't do it. So
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, hey, I'd rather have them zero out on the sales.
Yeah.
Just identify the problem. If the prospect wants to buy, they'll ask.
Right. 100%. Okay. So the other thing that like stands out from your Costco experience is emotion. So it all emotionally first started, not necessarily that you're a highly emotionally charged being, but the emotion of the unknown or the choppy waters of the political landscape and of the international relations spurred some kind of emotion, which then moved to action of just starting to investigate, well, what are the potential problems? Then as the potential problems became aware, a solution was offered, and we logically made a decision, hey, I don't need solar, I'm just going to do a generator. So I'm a firm believer that sales literally, it's a transfer of emotion. People will buy on emotion every single time, but then they will justify on logic. And that's exactly what I heard in this story is emotionally you got a little bit engaged because of the landscape of our world. He came over, had a conversation that was genuine, which is also an emotion, and asking real logical questions, which then led to a justified decision or commitment to get this. Do you have the generators at the house?
Mm-hmm.
Sold. It's a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Of course.
It's
Yeah.
wild to me. Even the sensei can be sold.
One thing. Oh yeah, I like to buy, right?
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I'm buying, right?
Yeah.
So, and when the wanting to buy and the ability to sell matches, it's perfect.
Right.
And what happened was something that a lot of people don't share. A lot of people don't share that. They have a number in their mind, right? But the number is established. 'Cause 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 the number by contrast.
Okay.
So, for example, if I had the guy come over and he sells me a generator, and my budget was I was going to go buy one of those do-it-yourself generators, like $900. If he gives me a quote for 30 grand, I would freak out,
100%.
right?
Right.
But if in my mind, I was like, oh, I was thinking about building an entire bunker,
The
having
underground,
solar.
the underground mansion one.
Yeah, I was thinking about spending like $1 million.
Yeah.
And he pitches me 28 grand.
Yeah.
I'm like, so, done.
Easy peasy. Did he paint a contrast frame for you?
He's like, you don't need this, you don't need that, you don't need that.
Yeah.
You'll find, like,
Yeah.
spend 28 grand, you're good. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I spent millions learning this stuff, and willingly too, right?
100%. Yeah.
People can come and spend maybe 100 grand if they're aggressive.
Yeah.
If they're like, I just want to get to know this stuff, 50 grand, 25 grand, 15 grand. There's programs that are very affordable, even 5 grand. So people can jump in when they compare that to 6 million. And they might say, how would it be possibly worth 6 million? I would say, well, it depends on how much potential you have.
Ooh. Okay. A takeaway.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Because if they don't have that level of potential, they don't believe it, sign up for a smaller program. And it's not just like, hey, should I jump right in? If they don't have the money and they may have the potential, that's fine. Still start small.
Yeah.
But I'm not that guy who wants to wait. Like if I knew I could somehow leverage my way into having the best,
Yeah.
that will save me years. How much is years worth when I'm a billionaire?
Right. Right. Makes a lot.
So I want to
Yeah.
do whatever I can to get to that state where I can get the knowledge early as possible.
That makes perfect sense to me. Wild, man. Okay.
It's always the question of how much is the time worth when I achieve my full potential? Not how much is this money worth? Because someone might look at 50 grand and be like, holy shit, this is a lot to pay for training.
Right.
Well,
Is it?
if you're
Yeah.
a billionaire or even just a multimillionaire, how much is 3 years, 5 years, or unpredictable amount of years worth?
Yeah.
Is it worth 50 grand? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be at the end of their life and be like, I wish I could have another 5 years, but not willing to pay 50 grand though.
That's fair. That's fair. Interesting. That contrast frame really does help a ton in a lot of ways. I remember when I first got into selling and I started my first business, I had a buddy who worked for a jeweler and he would sell Breitling watches. And at the time, he would sell these watches to a lot of the jazz players because we're up in Utah. And he had a lot of private clients as well that owned their own businesses. And they're buying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 watches. And in my mind, I was like, what on earth are they? That's a car. Or that's like, that's a down payment on a house. Like, what are they doing? And the idea of buying a $20 Casio watch in my mind was outrageous. I'll just look at my phone. Like, I'm not buying a watch. Like, the contrast, painting that contrast really is such a powerful thing. Especially if you can paint the contrast in training of, well, if you knew X, Y, and Z, and it could save you 10 years of using the house analogy, getting splinters in your hands and chopping wood and clearing the earth to prepare the foundation, wouldn't you want to? That makes perfect sense. Great analogy.
It's all about leverage.
Yeah. What do you mean? Tell me a little bit more.
The most successful people know how to leverage
Yeah.
other people's time, other people's money, other people's skills, and knowledge. The last two are not leveraged enough. Most people know as an investor, leverage other people's money,
Right.
other people's time. Well, skills too, a little bit, right?
Right.
But other people's knowledge?
Mm.
To me, that is one of the currencies that I can leverage that the people who leverage the other three don't have. They have a lot of knowledge, but what I was seeking was beyond that level of knowledge. I wanted to find something they didn't have. I was very focused on it. So when I find things that the people who know how to leverage money and other people's time and other people's skills, and I have something they don't have, there's a trade.
That makes sense. So just out of curiosity, top 2 trainings you've ever done? Of this investment you've made, what are the top 2 trainings that you would say are the most foundational in what you don't have to name them by name, but just that have laid the foundation for upgrade?
The first one was only $5,000-ish.
Okay.
The second one was $50K.
Okay.
I mean, they're 2 separate trainings.
Right.
The reason $5K was so valuable, it wasn't like it's more valuable than the next training, but it was so valuable that it was my first training.
Okay.
It woke me up
Okay.
to the worlds that I didn't know existed.
Okay.
That, I sort of had a feeling existed, but didn't understand how to interact with the mental, emotional, and beyond.
Okay.
And so it taught me that you can create results in hyperspeed,
Okay.
and that I regretted not jumping in 10 years earlier because I knew about it 10 years earlier.
Okay.
Same group, I said no.
Really?
Same group, I said
Okay.
no. I was only 17 when I found it.
Yeah.
I actually had more money when I was 17 than when I was 26.
Yeah.
And because I had a startup that plateaued and I had no money left.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? F it. I'm going to leverage my credit card.
Yeah.
So I went for that. And the second one was $50K. It taught me that I was worth it. Not just that, of course, but it was the first concept. I was like, I can't fathom it, investing that much in myself.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was like, you know what? F it. I am going to do it. And in fact, I got a text that one day when I said no. I said no first.
Yeah.
And the instructor texted me and he said, you're coming, right? He didn't know I said no in my mind. I was like, no, I'm not coming.
Yeah.
I'm worried that it's too much financially, like too much pressure.
Right.
He asked one question following that. He said, are you focusing on what you want? And I said, no, I'm focusing on the worst outcome possible. And he said, what do you want instead? And I said, I want to be able to take this training, triple my income, pay it off. He's like, then do it.
The rest is history.
Now, the interesting thing is most people don't know that they think their way into failure.
This is the shiz that you were talking about before, becoming aware of the way they're thinking. So keep going.
So when I was thinking this is too much pressure, is because I was thinking in my mind all the scenarios. If I spent $50,000, I would lose and I wouldn't be able to make it back, and I lose my house, I lose this, lose that. And I was renting at the time, so there's really I would just lose the rental. Anything. It wasn't really that bad. But I was painting this terrible picture in my mind.
Right.
So he woke me up. He said, are you focusing on what you want? Because what you play on the stage of your mind is a preview. So I was like, oh, okay. I want to triple my income, pay this training off. He's like, then do it. You're in charge of your mind and your behavior. Who else is, right?
Right.
So I had to make a full decision that I'm going.
Yeah.
And the training had an NDA, so I didn't even know. I couldn't even tell what I was getting trained on.
Honestly, in the beginning, there was a handful of times when I signed up for trainings. I'm like, I don't even know what I just signed up for, but I trust them. So let's just do it. And it works.
Yeah.
It works. Now the curriculum is very clear and it's been laid out. Upgrade has evolved a ton, but I understand the feeling when Shelly's like, what did you sign up for? I don't know.
That was back in the day when we were running it like a mystery school.
And it was great.
Yeah.
It was like the mystery machine. Just jump in the van. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a great imagery. And now we've been very intentional about simplifying,
Very much.
right?
Yeah.
And of course, at the highest level, is still sort of like that mystery school model. Yet it's still very structured. And we're actually enacting NDAs starting this 2025. So
Cool.
all of the Upgrade World trainings will have an NDA.
Cool. Very cool.
Because we're going to start implementing some new things I discovered that I think people are going to be really happy about, but I don't want them to share. It's just not something they want to share to people that are unprepared.
Yeah.
That have not cleared their minds of negative emotions.
No, that makes perfect sense. A couple of thoughts came to mind with the trainings. So you said before we started the podcast, you were talked about, and you don't have to dive into the details, but an incredible deal that may be coming or that is en route due to getting more clear on the offerings, right? And then just now saying we've become far more intentional about it. One of the trainings that you guys offer is with David Morehouse. And throughout that training, he kept saying intention governs everything. And on my own little entrepreneurial journey over the last 2 years, I have found...
It's not little. It's awesome.
It's been wild.
Yeah.
It's been wild. I have found that really the more clarity I get and the brighter the vision gets, the more easy and effortless that it comes. Because the intention is so clear that it becomes inevitable. It's a powerful thing.
That's it.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons we start enacting NDA is actually exactly that. So if I may unpack a little bit.
Yeah, please.
First, when people come in to upgrade, they need to become clear about what their blind spots are.
Right.
What are the problems they don't even know they have? We need to remove the landmines.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of successful entrepreneurs will get to a certain point and landmines will blow up.
Yeah.
And they lose everything. It is awful.
Mm.
Right? Everyone should, in all their power, prevent that.
100%.
And so when people come through that training, they discover what they don't know. Well, clarity from there goes to how do we clearly help other people?
Yeah.
Influence other people without using negative thinking, force. But it's a inviting magnetism.
I love it.
Right? Then, as they get clear about their skills and how they can maneuver in the physical world using their mental, emotional excellence and skills, right?
Right.
Then they begin to get clear on the next level, the upgrade world. They begin to get clear about, okay, here's how I can use the different laws that exist in other worlds or other realm, as the quantum, as you may call it, right? To change and create change in the physical. And when people begin to realize, oh, I can do that.
Right.
That clarity is another level of clarity. But here's what happens. It's like, imagine if your mind is like a portal.
Right.
And you can bring things into the physical world. You wouldn't want to not be clear about what you don't want in there first to be removed. You wouldn't want to not be clear about how to skillfully manage this portal before you open it up.
Mm.
That's why we enact an NDA, because if someone goes home and teach other people how to open this portal and other people have demons in their mind, in a sense,
Yeah.
right? Terrible thoughts and negative thinking, well, we have a protective mechanism to not actually immediately create what we think.
Yeah.
Imagine if every kid who's worried about boogeyman
Has to fight the boogeyman. Yeah.
all of a sudden the boogeyman shows up if the portal's just open. That would be
Yeah.
terrible, right?
Yeah.
Adults have the same mechanism of protection, but in the highest level of training, we begin to help you resolve that protection that's no longer needed.
Mm.
The training wheel
Yeah.
comes off. You can fully open this portal,
Yeah.
but you better know what's
What
in
you
there
want.
and how to manage that, right?
100%.
And you better know what you want.
Yeah.
So that's where that clarity is key at the highest level.
Clarity is massive. It is such a powerful. Yeah, I can't speak enough to the being clear on what you want, because it's inevitable. You're going to get it. The unfortunate part is most people are so focused on what they don't want, and that's one of the biggest things I learned with Upgrade right out the gates. And you can do it. You can do the social experiment. You can go out and ask somebody what they want, and they're going to rattle off 9 times out of 10 the things that they do not want before you have to literally do a pattern interrupt and be like, no, I get it, but what do you want?
Oh man, I've totally done that myself.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
I've actually noticed as I've come to a crossroads even now. Well, 3 weeks ago, I called you and I said, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? And you literally said, you're focused on what you don't want. And I was like, yeah, he's probably right. Yeah, he's right. And then it was an easy shift to refocus. And then since that time, things
That's
are just
the
flowing
environment piece.
Right.
Because if all your environment's focusing on what you don't want, what they don't want, it's easy for you to focus on what you don't want.
100%.
But when you have someone that's gonna, like, you tell them what's going on, they can clearly see, hey, you're focusing on what you don't want. Bam.
The easy fix. Yeah. It's powerful, man. Well, on that note, man, I want to say thank you to you for the change that you have invoked into my life.
Pleasure.
It's been powerful, and it's had a massive, massive influence on my kids. Like, just as we're talking self, then people, then world. Like, and I'll share a story that I'll actually contribute to the things I've learned at Upgrade just to close this out from my end. But the football game that I missed the event down in Miami for. The game prior to that was a pretty big predicting game of where they would fall in the playoffs. And my son is a senior in high school, and he's one of the captains. And he, it was just not good at halftime. They were down, I think, 14-3, I think is what the score was. And it was just not looking good at all. And unfortunately, because of the world that is very prevalent, the coaches, the team, everybody was so focused on losing, what they didn't want. Like, we can't lose, we got to do this. And because of the things I've learned in Upgrade and the intimate conversations I've been able to have with him, he was able to basically take a step back, let everybody vent everything out, and then he took them through a visualization of, imagine this, guys. We come in at the locker room at the end of the game. The scoreboard is exactly where we need it to be. We won. We take our jerseys off. We're high-fiving. We're pumped about everything. Doesn't that feel better? Imagine this, and I'm not going to name the names. Imagine this quarterback, you throw this pass and this happens. Doesn't that feel good? Let's do that. Dude, they came out and blew them out. They ended up winning like 35-14. It was a great game, and it was all based off of the intention and the focus, which is what is the foundation of learning at Upgrade. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. That was worth skipping the event for sure for your son.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
That's a beautiful story.
Thanks, man.
Man.
So it was a good podcast. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Pleasure.
It's dead.